Thank you for watching Exploring with Sisters. Today, on our Norwegian vacation, we are visiting two historic churches. One is a stave church, and one is a more recent church built in the 1800s. Now, the red church is actually the Stave Church, which is a wooden church from the Middle Ages. And the name stave comes from the construction of the building technique. It has large ground beams of wood placed on top of a foundation of stone. Then internal wooden pillars, which are called staves, are interconnected and also connected to the outer walls. Now, this church has a different style of supporting beams, which are on the outside of the church. They were either built to reinforce the church against the harsh weather or maybe just to support the church's construction in general. The steeple was added in 1810. Now, this church is located in Averoy, Norway, and seats 200 people. It is open for tours and is still used for special events such as weddings and concerts. The setting was outstanding up on the hill, facing the fjords. I mean, what a spectacular setting for a church. Now, our visit to the church was included on our Atlantic Road excursion from Havila Voyages. We were very excited to visit the interior and learn more about the church from the wonderful tour guide. There was only natural light coming into the few windows that the church had, no electricity. I was a little surprised that the layout appeared to be more Catholic than Protestant, and you'll see what I mean as I show you more photographs.
So, the Stave Church had a study done in 2020 within the chronology. That means that they took building samples from throughout, and based on the wood, the rings, etc., the building materials come from between 1630 and 1633. That means that this is the youngest stave church in all of Norway, and it's the only one built after Reformation. It's a Protestant church.
It was common for Norwegian churches to show a boat in the center of the nave. What's unusual about this church is that the boat is actually a war brigade vessel. Most churches had just a common or normal boat. Now, the boat signifies the Christian congregation and the individual's journey through life. The blue raised seated section was built in 1767 for the then minister's wife as a request by her. At the time the church was used, the more money a family donated to the church, the closer that they sat to the pulpit or to God. And men sat on the right, and women and children sat on the opposite side. There was a medieval belief that evil came from the north, and this is why there are no windows on the north side of the church. At each section up front, there was a choir row. I was surprised at how narrow the seats were. They must have been sitting on the edge of their seats. Beautiful wood paintings and carvings all over every surface of the church. There was a Catholic relic in the center altar, dated back to 1475, and it was built in Germany and moved here. There was a Norwegian sculpture that depicted Moses on the left of the altar and John the Baptist on the right. This frame around the original altar dates to 1695 and is done in the Baroque style. I wasn't able to find much information on what this piece was on the left side of the church, or the north end, but it had beautiful carvings that were colored and painted. Very lovely, very striking piece. There was a small, tiny room that had some artifacts of tools and old wooden chests in it. I found it very interesting how low the ceiling was. Couldn't believe how far I had to duck to move into this room. I'm showing you here with my hand how I could touch the ceiling. This special seating area was built for the 100th anniversary of the church for, at the time, the king who came to visit and celebrate this anniversary. The interior of the church dates back to the 17th century. It is full of richly painted walls, and there's efforts underway today that's being made to expose more of this original painting and interior decorations. The primary decoration on the walls are the acanthus vines. They were probably painted on the walls a few decades after the church was built, around 1648. As I mentioned earlier, depending on the donations made from the families, it dictated where they sat in the church. And here's an old map with the actual names of the congregation and where they sat within the church. At the rear of the church was the baptismal fount, and it is still used today as well, we learned from our guide. There were more than 1,000 stave churches in Norway in the Middle Ages, but only 28 have been preserved today. I felt truly honored to visit this church and to learn so much about its history. This is the only stave church that was built after the Reformation, and what's very unusual is that it was built in this style because most of the Lutheran churches after the Reformation used a different architectural layout, so this one was outdated when they built it. Now the chancel screen, which separates the altar from the nave, was built in 1631. We then walked next door to the, quote, newer church that was built in 1893. We weren't allowed to tour that and they didn't have a guide, but we were able to sneak in and take a few pictures of the interior. You can notice that this one had a more normal boat hanging in the nave. By the time this church was built, I guess they figured out that evil didn't come from the north because they had windows on both sides. If you're in this area or going to the Atlantic Road, I would recommend a detour. Take in this incredible view of the fjords. The church overlooks the Kvernes and the fjords. Absolutely stunning. Thanks for taking your time to watch this video by Exploring with Sisters. We appreciate your subscribing and watching our videos and sharing with your friends. Continue watching, we have a lot more to share about our trip in Norway.